everybody, Anthony Dodge, Maltrain Outsider, American Outsider, a Knight of the Rhomboid Table, here with the third catalog of the big three Euro models that I collect. So without any further ado, very striking cover, let's get into it. All right, so straight into steam locomotives, and again, a very cool picture there. Let's see what we got. So a Class 85, Märklin announced in the fall a Class 85. So very, very cute, very cool, and a matching set of coaches to go with it. Very cool. And again, if you don't know, Roco, like Pico, releases things in two rail, which they call Gleichstrom in German, or DC. And if they have a version in three rail, it'll all be over next to the model. So you'll see down there for this model, it's expected to be released in Q1. And there's a DC version and a DCC version. And that is because Märklin is releasing the AC version. And a little tribute to Karl Gullsdorf. What do we got here? We have the Class 310. This is a big fella. That's definitely an older fella as well. KKSTB. Very impressive. That's going to cost a penny. And yes, it will be in a three-rail version down at the bottom. Very sharp for an older locomotive. And again, old is relative. In the UK, Loco started in the 1820s, and then they caught on in Europe a couple of decades later, 10, 15 years later. All right, we have a sketch, computer-rendered sketch of an RH-109, something a little more to my era. And let's see what we have, a 477, celebrating all kinds of new stuff, a Czechoslovakian. So a new sculpt. They go through all this. And there it is. Now we saw that, was it Pico is releasing a 477. So Roco is jumping in as well. All new construction. So a totally new design. Very sharp. And this is the difference. Pico showed you a photograph of what they were making. Roco has a model for demonstration, and I just prefer seeing the model, not the photograph of the real thing, except to compare the model to, but it's the model you're going to buy, so I always like to see the model. So this is very, very sharp coloring. All right, let's see, we got a little 2/2 6066 Bavarian, another little Aero 1, so yeah, the little guys are getting recognition in the last few months, between Märklin releasing a couple of real narrow early Aero ones, and now Pico had one, and now a couple by Roco already in this. And then a little rolling set to go with it. All right, nice. And here's another one, a 2-3, the Gattung, with a reissue. These are some cars. I actually have some versions of these cars that I got in Herb's collection. Very sharp. Look very nice. And make a great set. Here's another one. So the S10.1 of Prussia. So let's see what we see with an S10. Here we go. There it is. Prussia. KPEV is Prussia. And a really nice luxury car to go with it. That's a very cool model. So very impressive. And yes, an AC version. Not that I'm buying. No. Do like the car. Do they have others to go with it? Yes, they do. That's a nice set. And more. Oh, and I like the red on that baggage card, the Gepäckwagen. And yes, Roco releases it just in German. Sorry, guys. Or at least from my experiences. They might release an English version, but I've usually only seen it in German. That's very sharp. That's a cool set of wagons. And again, Roco just puts in brilliant pictures of their models in action. Always love that. So here's Class 38, 3713. I picked up a 38, but it has a different type of tender. I do like the green, though. It's a nice offset. And a whole bunch of cars to go with it. And I gotta love Roco. They're always very good. American as well. Pico is sort of hit and miss, where they release a nice set of cars to go with some of their prime locos they're releasing each year. Well, there we go. A Class 39. That's a big fella. A 282. Very cool. And then the ubiquitous Class 50. In fact, two different Class 50s. One of West Germany and one of East Germany. And another Class 38, this time in black. A more recent model. And what's that down below? That's an interesting one. Is that going to come up? And there it is, Class 86. Very compact one. It's not really short because if you look at the wheel alignment, it's a 482, but it just looks very compact, but very sharp, like in a lot of the detail there. And again, you can pause. I'm just going through quickly and giving you first reactions, first impressions. Another great set of coaches to go with it. The Deutsche Reichsbahn, so this would be East Germany again. And a BR22 is coming up. So interesting, we seem to have a lot of East German. So if you're into East German locomotives, Roco is throwing a lot of steamers at you. This is the fourth Deutsche Reichsbahn, post-war East German. This one would be 60s and 70s into the 80s. Class 39, so another Class 39, which is more similar to the tender I have. And a bunch of high-speed trains, Schnellzugwagen, high-speed train, fast train coaches, wagons. So very nice. And then some Metropas, sleeper cars, two sleeper cars and a meal car, and then the packing. So really a nice set there. One first class, a first class, second class split, a second class, and then you got a couple of sleeper cars. So that would make one heck of a consist, and you could really build up a train by adding a couple of more of those second class cars, at least one more. And now we have this one, which is Luxembourg, the CFL. They call it a KDL Type 1, but it's just a Class 52. And some cool looking rolling stock to go with it. So yeah, it's just a Class 52, but Luxembourg Type 1. The 52s were ubiquitous right after the war because they made so many of them and Germans were using them everywhere. And a French 52. So you get this paint scheme and a different, you got a Czech, you've got a Czechoslovakian, you've got East German, you just saw a Luxembourgish, and now here's a French. Very sharp green on that French. And then below that, we have a Polish OK137, which I would know nothing about, but I do like the coloring on it. That's a very sharp French locomotive, but the Polish in the black with the red detailing really adds something to it. Very sharp, very sharp. All right, so we're going into our electrics. Railjet double stock, double stock, double deckers. This could be interesting. So let's get to it. Double deckers, it is a Triebzug, so it is a rail car set, double decker. It's not pulled by a locomotive. I am sure this is going to cost a fortune. And when when Roco releases, they do release the price list in a separate magazine. Pico, I like, puts a suggested price on their German language. They don't put the suggested price in English. They just put in euros German. So this is a very, very possible maybe. This one, again, it's a CAD, but the new railjet form, I could be going for this. That might, we'll have to see what the cost is, because I'm assuming that's going to be over $1,000. Okay, Wolfgang Walusek, Master of Design, Meister des Design. So what do we got here? Some architecture and some trains he's designed. All right, so let's get to it. All right, Austrian. Wow, I would have, if you'd shown that to me, I would have said Czech or one of the Slovakia, Slovenia, that area, but it's Austrian. So that's a little bit different color for me. That's really cool looking class 1144, which is an Austrian classic, but I don't know my older Austrian other than the dark reds they had at one time. And a very cool set of cars. That will make a nice train. I would not be buying it, but that locomotive and those cars, that's sweet looking. Whoever has that run on their layout, congrats. That'll be very cool looking. I like that a lot. All right, here's a class 186. I need a class. Well, I've got one class 86. I want another. And I like this one. That's a cool livery. I just love these modern, and I hate to say corporate logos, but you got to like them. The Attraktive Forces. Nothing like German and English mixed, right? And there's the real one right there. Cool. And so here's a Vectron. So are we going to see it? There it is. Your partner, Adesso. That's a cool looking Vectron livery. That's very cool too. I mean, Vectron, Roco as well as Pico are going to have a lot of Vectrons released because they're producing so many, and they're just going, anytime they see a cool livery, it's like, we're making a model of that. All right, here's a Belgian Class 186, and somebody else, was it Pico or Märklin? I think Märklin was doing the Belgian 186. So very interesting. These companies produce these models early on. All right, now we're into Swiss 4.4. Finish that thought. Everybody releases or designs and puts things into production years in advance. They don't know what the other companies are necessarily releasing. So anyhow, the 4.4, sharp for its era. Couple of really cool looking cars to go with it. The Zeytal Bahnwagen. I just saw these for the first time in a video I was watching. I was like, I'd never seen those before, and then came across them. A guy was selling some old models of these. So even though these are years and years old, I had not really noticed their livery and style before until recently. Okay, the RE112 or 4.4. All right, let's see. Close up of all the changes they're making in the new sculpt. Whenever you see Roco do this, it's because they're advertising a new sculpt, a new construction. And that's what the little N next to me is. Former variant, Südostbahn, Southeast Railway 4.5. That's cool. It's not my style or era, but it's definitely very sharp, stand out. Roco's always going to have just very standout models. And there you have it with a group of old Swiss passenger coaches. So are we making them? Bingo! There they are, the Südostbahn. Nice set there. So again, that would make a nice, lovely consist. So hats off to Roco for making some really cool locos and some matching car sets so you can have a really glorious train. All right, the Crossrail 436. So a more modern take. It's got a good, I'm not gonna say it's ugly livery at all. It's very sharp, just doesn't pop after the previous one. That's sad to say that. And here we have some others. Another 4-4 and then a 6x6. Classic Swiss styles. And so they are releasing a new special decoder. They're announcing they're using the Zemo. The future is here. So a bunch of their new and old forms update. So they are releasing a lot of these previous 193s and other locos with this new decoder. So the Deutschland Pierce, Swiss Cargo Vectron, and they released a couple of variations of that one. This one is highlighted in red, the other one was highlighted in blue, or maybe this one it's red on one side, blue on the other, but I thought it was two different ones. Very sharp. So the Inner City, the ICN, Naigatsu. So what do we got? Oh, that's sharp. We know what's coming. We know what's coming. And there it is. A 5-car set of the Swiss Triebzug, the 500. I was just going to read all that, and I got distracted. Sorry. It's the first time, Roco is saying it's the first time they've done this in a while. So here it is. Very sharp. Gotta love it. And an add-on car to make it a full 7-car set. So the ICN, really like that a lot. Again, not going on my list, but it's very sharp. And if somebody gave it to me, I'd love it. All right, what more do we got? More Swiss, a BLS. I have had so many friends educating on me lately because I dared to say it a live stream or a video when I saw them that really don't know much about them. And I think Roco had one and Miraklin had one they were releasing in their summer releases. And now Roco has another one here. And then a 465, which along with the 463s are very just iconic to me in modern Switzerland. And there's a Railpool 186, which I have one of that from Miraklin. Thanks to, I believe it was Dirk. I don't want to give, or was that from Andy? I keep crossing who gave me which. Dirk gave me the Blue Tiger. Andy gave me the 186. All right, so some checks, and 469 and a 121. These would be Czechoslovakia, although I'm sure the bottom one would have worked into the split because it's Era 5, and Era 5 goes into the late 90s, and by that time, Czechoslovakia had split into the Czech Republic and Slovakia. And there's the 121 working. Did they give you a car rack to go with that? Apparently not. All right. Oh, wow. That's a dizzying little Vectron there, 193. That's quite it's almost too busy a livery for me. Almost too busy a livery, but pretty sharp. I'm interested to see those coaches. Are they making them? Nope. Okay, so sorry about that. Might have been interesting to see it with those coaches. All right. An E44 from pre-war Germany. And some of these ore cars, which it says goes with the electric locomotive above. So cool. I'm seeing new ore cars that I'd really never paid attention to before. So very, very interesting, very intriguing. The Talbot Schotterwagen. All right. Here's an E44 that goes with the Deutsche Bahn set here. Because obviously things survived the war and they kept them in use. So that is the Ferien Express, the Vacation Express, the Holiday Express. Train ride to Berchtesgaden. So pretty cool. That would make a cool little set. The Ferien Express, yep. All right, we have a Class 141. Seeing a few 141s coming out. And a 211. Another kind of ubiquitous, seen all the time, everywhere. Very cool. And Fleischmann celebrating its 100th year as a company. So some Era 4 coaches with the Fleischmann birthday. So that's cool. Of course, Fleischmann used to make HONN, but for close to, I'd say 20 years, Fleischmann and Roco have been owned by the same company, and about 6 years ago, they finally said Roco makes HO and TT, and Fleischmann makes the N scale. So it's like Märklin and Trix now. Roco does the HO, and Fleischmann does the N. All right, so more wagons to go with those two Fleischmann birthday coaches. So, yeah, they're silver, the Silberlingas. Just, yeah, I mean, they're cool enough. Classics to a lot of Germans. Just, I'm into the more brightly colored, bright reds and such. Okay, so we're going to get some Interregios. So, let's see where we start. And here is that Class 101 in the Bayer Company. Of course, most Americans know Bayer for aspirin and certain other medicines, but it's a huge German conglomeration, Era 5. So the early phases of the 101. Of course, 101s are being phased out. So the Bayer aspirin. And are we going to get those coaches to match? Well, you can get those coaches. The white with green livery. They're fairly easy to find. All right. A Class 103 in the old, what was called Orient Red. Very cool. And a 234, which I don't think you have, 232 is Ludmilla. This is in a similar vein. But Deutsche Bahn, this is probably one that they got during reunification. Well, it says Era 4 to 6, but it's in the Deutsche Bahn livery. But I'm wondering if that's one they got over from East Germany. But I do like that 103. I wouldn't mind getting a 103 in the Verkehrsrot. That could be Verkehrsrot. Because, yeah, I don't think that's the Orient Red. I think that is Verkehrsrot. It's not saying that I'm reading, because I'm trying to do this fast. There's some of those coaches right there. So the Interregio, which technically do not exist anymore. They don't call them Interregios. The IR 461. So there is the Steuerwagen, and there's the coaches. So 2 3-car sets and a Steuerwagen. Cool. Very sharp. An old Class 140. I shouldn't say old because it's all relative. And one of the first locomotives I became familiar with, the Class 145 and its sisters, the 146s, 145, 145-2, 146, 146-2, 146-5, and so on. So all new tooling. So there we have a Class 145 in Deutsche Bahn red as they look today. So, but a standard 145. And in the RBH, which is kind of a cool livery. I like that. And then a Class 189, very sharp, both in Verkehrsrot and then a black one. I like both of those. Those are both very cool, Class 189s. And there they are together, pulling a big load, and there's the load they're pulling. Some ore cars from Era 6. If we do go to Germany this year, I'll see if these are out in some of the shops, because I might pick up a pack of each, or at least one. We'll see. All right, there's a Class 112, which are technically out of service, but when we were in Germany in 2023, we saw some 112s still working. They pulled them out of retirement, basically. And then another Class 189. Sharp. Okay, are we going where I think we're going? Nope, it's still just a standard Vectron. 193 and a 7193. Uh, but yeah, more Vectrons in more liveries. Both cool liveries. And the MRCE, the very standard black, and is that trend? No, that's TX Logistic, uh, all white, so an all almost all black, almost all white. So both are pretty cool. There's the one in real life. All right, so now we're going to get to more Triebzug, but not Faircares, regional traffic, local traffic, commuter traffic. So let's see what they're offering. A Flirt 3, very cool, from BRB. And, I'll have to consider this because Joyce and I rode these back in 2023 when we went to, we were in Salzburg, but we kept going up to like Porsche Traumwerk and that. We had to go through Freilassing, and we rode both city jets, but we also rode this. At the time, I did not know they were called Flirts, but we rode this, so I don't know. Do I add that? Because this is the Freilassing, and we went through Freilassing many times in our week in Salzburg. So very sharp. And did they say, yeah, it's a 6-car set. Wow. That's long. And then here is a 5-car set in Baden-Württemberg. And that's that, but very cool. Let's see. We've got a French BB26025, which I forget which logo that is. And then more standard, the 15,000 series here. That's French. You know, I look at those logos and I think French or Italian. And they've just got sort of an art, I don't know if I want to say Art Nouveau or Art Deco look to them. They just they look like things from, I always say this and nobody gets it, but when I was a kid in the 60s, my older relatives had these modern era end tables, and they looked like this. You know, they had a top shelf and a lower shelf, and they had this little zig to them. And every time I look at this, so whenever I see these, I'm probably the only one who gets it. I call them end tables. Well, here's a Taurus with some of those cars. And there's those cars that we saw with a different locomotive earlier. Hungarian. Eurofirma. So very cool. So I like that Hungarian Class 182, which is a Taurus. So we had a really cool Era 5 set from Pico, and now a really cool Era 6 Hungarian set. Hardy, if you watch this, Hungarian set. Very cool. Very cool. And more 189s and 193s. This time both Italians. Seeing this striped livery, the zebra, as they call it. Zebra. And there it is with, is that the Matterhorn in the distance? All right, so a Rail Force 1 Class 1750 for the Netherlands and a Class 1600 for the Netherlands. Both very sharp, but the one Netherlands, but in DB red livery. Rail Force 1 and Deutsche Bahn. And there's the Deutsche Bahn one at work. Okay. And a Dutch Vectron. And somebody else just released one of these. I think it was Märklin last year, I think. Very cool. And pulling a night jet. Interesting. That's a combination I would not have expected to see. All right, more electric locomotives. And I'm sorry, I don't go through that. A Swedish DA917. It's Swedish, but I see the DA and I want to say Danish, but it's Swedish. So very cool. So some tip of that to Sweden. We did not see any Swedish stuff from Märklin this year, nor Pico, but Roco picks them up. So an 1173, very cool. And some matching Swedish freight to go with it. If you do your Swedish trains, here's a nice little freight train to get going, Aero 4. And modern era, class 482. It's a Trax. So again, I always forget it's that like the German version 182 or 185, what have you. But modern era. And there's Swedish, although it looks a lot like that one German-built Amtrak locomotive that they tried back in the 90s, I think it was. But yeah, there it is. Amtrak design from Sweden, the X995. So it is that locomotive. Okay, read first. But remember, I'm doing this live. My apologies. Okay, more Swedish. Very cool. 4620. And then an older Polish EU05. Saw a lot of Polish from Pico. So here's a second nod from Roco to the Polish collectors. And then a modern era, a Polish Vectron. Because again, you can just keep, although that's a Polish Vectron, but it's pulling Czech ICEC coaches. But they're releasing it. That's kind of cool. The Adriatic Express. So that's pretty cool. And then Slovakia. Very cool. Roco definitely giving shouts out. And some coaches to go with that Slovakian. Very cool. Very cool. I just like to see other countries and where you can get a whole train for a country, you know, especially European. I have not traveled in that part of Europe, but maybe someday. Okay, diesels, and there's a Presnitz, which, no, I decided not. I was going to run it on my live stream this weekend. I decided not to run it. So a 2143 Regioban, and again, all new detailing. They're always going to highlight that. So you got a 2143 Austrian. Artie, is this one you got or you were looking for? You were looking for something like this. Or were you looking for, oh well, sorry. And some matching coaches to go with it. Very cool. And then there's that Regioban we were just looking at. From Era 6. They say it's Era 6. The coaches below it are Era 5. Interesting. The Erlebniszug. The experience train. So Regioban and some Schlierenwagen. Those are kind of sharp looking. Those would make a nice consist. They got a little bit of the CIWL Orient Express look to them. You know, definitely cut down, lower budget. You know what I mean? But yeah, those are kind of sharp. Just got that feel to them. All right, so here's even earlier versions. So again, just to bounce back, you got Era 5, and you got kind of the same thing, but Era 3, and then short ones from Era 3. Spantenwagen. All right, and then here is basically a Taurus. It's a 2016, so it's a diesel version of what the E64, which is called the Taurus for Austrian, so a freight hauler. And then what we got here is a Czechoslovakian little diesel shunter, the class 466. And speaking of Czech, there's a 478 Czechoslovakian. And again, Czechoslovakian, maybe Czech Republic, because that Era 5 bridges the gap where the country split. But based on those colorations, I would say that is more Czechoslovakia as opposed to Czech Republic. And one more modern era, České dráhy, so the federal railways of the Czech Republic, or Czechia as it's now specifically referred to. That's kind of cool. I like that a bit. It's a bit of a tank, but I still kind of like it. Then down below, your diesel shunters. Again, just not my thing. I mean, definitely it's got a livery that catches your fancy. I lean towards passenger as opposed to freight. And shunters, whether steam, electric, are there electric shunters? And diesel, just not my thing. A 217, okay, tempting, and there it is. 217, because I think Märklin announced a 217. And this is the Era 4, the ocean blue and green. cream. I'm sorry, ocean blue and cream. That's cool. Showing off more of the details they're adding because it's a new sculpt or updated version. Couple of rail cars are Akkutriebwagen mit Steuerwagen. So a rail car and a Steuerwagen. So there it is. It's kind of cool. Diesel shunter. BR290. Now, most people that are into them would have known that was a 290. I don't know them. But very sharp, nicely detailed German Aero 4. Themenwelt, Rangierbahnhof, so fiddle yard, a siding, so all kinds of things. So everybody has to release a crocodile each year. Everybody's got to have a crocodile, and there's one that right there. And then there's a 335. And some freight to go with it. Some silo wagons, hoppers and boxcars or similar. And some flatbeds with container freight. Old Hapag-Lloyd. More flatbeds. Wow, all kinds here. All kinds here. So yeah, they're letting you set up your goods yard. All right, we got a class 120, diesel 120, which means it would be East German because in West German and now reunited Germany nomenclature, 100 series is electric. So this would be a 220 if it were West German. But in East German, then down below it, a 118, which of course being East German is the equivalent of 218. So their version of a classic. And the V100. So just a picture of it right now. What else are they showing here? So, a 232. So modern repaint on the Ludmilla. Very sharp. I do like the all yellow maintenance of way trains, both in the UK and Germany and Austria. Very cool. All that, I'm sure that's going to cost a pretty penny. The Eisenbahndrehkran. The spinning crane. So yeah, that's an impressive, and I'll bet that cost a little bit of money. And a couple of flatbeds, that's cool. So what else are we looking at here? A Warsteiner train. Interesting. Are we going to get that? So there is a diesel 22 in the Warsteiner livery, and then some Warsteiner flatbeds. So definitely. So if you like your Warsteiner beer, which is okay. It's not my favorite German beer, but in Toledo, the old Germans like to argue of the two main beers. There's Beck's and Warsteiner, and they argue back and forth, and I'm like, neither of them are the best. But there you go. All right. Wood on the rails. Oh, I like that livery. At class 185, that's sharp. A German private rail company. I like that. That's one that if I had nothing else to get and I just wanted a cool looking locomotive, I would add that one. That's very sharp. And then another Ludmilla down below with the bond service. But yeah, that I don't know why that strikes me, but I like that livery a lot. That's very sharp. And wow, I like these Rungenwagen, so log trains basically. Just think rungs on a ladder. So very cool. So a 3-piece set in red and a 2-piece set in green. Both are 106. So that would be cool. So that's another interest. And some more French. And the end table cars. The end table locomotives, sorry. 72 series. And then a French diesel. I know these actually all have some basic, but they call it the Y8208. And then another Hungarian M62. Now again, others will know exactly what series that is. It's not related to the Ludmilla, but maybe it's related to the other one we saw earlier. And then we've got some Italian old diesel shunter there and some freight to go with it. Nebenan Güterzug. Attached goods cars. And then we have got Dutch and then Slovakian 754. So like that 754 there, the Slovakian 754 looks very similar to the Hungarian bit up above. Subtle differences in the window shape, but sort of the same class, I would think, same family of locos, like all the 215s, 16s, 17s, and 18s, all descended from the V160, sort of like that idea. All right, here's another Ludmilla in Polish. Somebody else just released this last year, or maybe these guys announced it last year and they're re-announcing it. But yeah, this Polish livery and matching cars to go with it. All right, so we're getting into start sets here. An IC starter set with a 218, cool enough. And it's just the differences. They're the same sets. They're both analogs, but the difference is the type of track you get. One gives you Geoline, which I think is their pre-bedded, and the other one is their basic track. And then another one with digital, same thing, but digital, Geoline, and their regular track. I'm sorry, I got the other way. Geoline is their base, and the Roco line is with bedding. And then you get a Z21, Z21, and a controller and all that. All right. So here we get a East German class 132, so a Ludmilla and a couple of East German passenger coaches. And here we go. Now sets of Personenwagen. So showing you some of the new detail, but this is going to be the newer Railjet car set. So I'm sure this is going to be another one that goes for over $1,000. Although this is a 6-car set, so maybe it'll be a little cheaper. But these are designed to go with the, it's the new design that like the back end matches the Vectrons that they're running them with. And then an additional 3-car set, so you can bump that up to 9. That's going to be a pretty penny. And there is a Taurus to go with it. I could do another Taurus. Märklin was going to release a Taurus, and didn't see it. All right, we got some Swiss double-deckers, coach and a Steuerwagen. We get more, and so they're releasing them all as, so you get, let's see, you get 1 car, 1 Steuerwagen, and then 2 cars and 2 cars. Well, if you want to get a Swiss double-decker, that's a good way to do it. It's more affordable that way, you know, if you can time it out. Second set, and then a, for the Pendelzug. All right, some Czechoslovak passenger coaches as well. More Czechoslovak. And the Citybahn. These are becoming popular. So Märklin is releasing one. I think Pico has one on tap. And now Roco. So very sharp. So you got multiple companies to choose this from. And here's the IC 2013. So new sculpts, the Allgäu. I've seen the 2013, believe it or not. Joyce and I were in Kempten, and we watched, and it was a red 218, ocean blue and green 218, and then a bunch of cars. I'll bet that was, because the route is the 2013, or there's probably multiple routes, but we saw that riding through. We were staying in Kempten, but we were down at a little place called Biesenheim or something like that, where we were catching a train, and we watched a double 218 pulling some Swiss IC coaches, and then we saw the Deutsche Bahn IC coaches going through. So there it is. Okay, so a 6-car set. Still got the board bistro because that's interesting since they are eliminating those. And then another 3-car set. So a big one, yeah. Makes sense. Okay, we're getting some little Regios. The 3 set and 2 set. So an all new 5. I wonder if this is the Roco's design or if this is ones they picked up. So Munchen de Hof. I don't need that one. But this one, they're releasing again. This is going on the definitely maybe list because that is the coaches for, unless I'm mistaken, that is Schleswig-Holstein. I'm trying to see if it specifically says that, but isn't that the Schleswig-Holstein? I'd have to look that up. I could be mistaken, but I have been looking for that. Okay. Oop. Well, that's an interesting one. The Ideenzug. That's interesting. I don't know who that's for. A couple of Italian. The Icy Sun Eurofirmawagen. That's cool. Some Polish older passenger cars. Behelfspersonenwagen. So aids and assistant wagon. Some Polish era 5, the Telemana. Those are cool looking. All right, now freight. And yeah, this Roco, it's a big catalog. So we saw some of these earlier, and there's some open goods wagons, and the Schulterwagen again, the Talbot Schulterwagen. Postschnellzug, so post train, and so a whole Postschnellzug, so a whole mail train, which I think is funny because you look at those and you think they're passenger cars, but it's a post wagon. All right, and there are those, we saw those pulling logs, but you can get them without the logs, so very cool. And then some nice flatbeds, all kinds of flatbeds there, a whole bunch of flatbeds plus a Rolla. The wagon for the folks that go with it. Another flatbed, a lot of flatbeds. All right, some Kesselwagen and Containerwagen, double container wagon. So Kesselwagen is the Kessel itself. A container Tragwagen is they're flatbeds. You can carry containers, but you can also carry those little drums there. And more open good wagon. More flatbeds for Switzerland. A lot of container freight for Switzerland. And the Gelenkwagen. You're carrying the semi-trailers and truck beds. Nice set of ore cars. GATX for Switzerland. Very cool. A lot of cool stuff there. Wakosa tankers, silo wagons. Another Postwagen, so we're getting a new sculpt of a Swiss post train. And the Co-op Züge. So the class 476 locomotive, and then the Co-op trailers, flatbeds to go with them. Self-loading, unloading wagons. Nice little set for Czechoslovakia there. And a lot more Czechoslovakian or just straight up Czech. The ones on the right are Czech as opposed to Czechoslovakian. Silo wagons, all for Czech or Czechoslovakia. Basically, eras 1 midway through 5 would be Czechoslovakia. Era 6 and some era 5 would be Czech. I do like those tarpaulin cars down there. Some more German Era 3 and 4 goods wagons. An old high pressure gas. And some more Talbot Schutterwagen. So those are a popular trend here, this Roco. Just more and more and more. You can pause and read if you want, but this is already a long video. I do like the Staub's Zielwagen. The one on top there. And Kesselwagen, so we're going to get a whole bunch of new design. BTG, so, and GATX, so there's all kinds of tankers. Long tankers, a couple of more tarpaulin. I do like those GATX down at the bottom. A rake of those I could add. That won't be bad. Just so much. There's just so much. It's cool. The metal coils are cool. Wouldn't mind adding a couple of those, but this is Spain, by the way. And then we got a little bit of Danish. Finally, the Danes get represented here in another tarpaulin car, and then a French flatbed with bottle wagon in it, looks like. Flakwagen. And then, yeah, more French. It just, so many nations here. One last French, and now we get into some Hungarian stock. So all kinds of Hungarian. So again, a very strong emphasis on Hungarian this time around. All right, so now into Italy. Standard Schiebewand the tarpaulin-sided wagons. They look just like the Deutsche Bahn ones I have. And then some more Dutch stuff. Old Scon Dutch. I've actually got some Scon Dutch stuff that I got from Herb. And more Dutch. Just all kinds of cool things. If there's one thing, it's that I think Roco's thing, as I'm going on an hour, this is overload. But yeah, a lot of cool Dutch stuff here. Polish. I'm always drawn to the tarpaulin cars. I don't know why. I like container wagons, and apparently I like tarpaulin cars because I'm always drawn to those. All right, so some Selbstentladen, self-unloading wagons. Polish, but one in the DB Schenker red and one in gray. One is Era 4, one is Era 6, but, you know, technology didn't change drastically between them. All right, so those are some interesting ones. Era 5, slightly different design. And then we've got Slovakian. And we have Swedish. Nordwagen. And now narrow gauge. I'm going to go through this quickly, but if you're into narrow gauge, Schmalspur narrow gauge, interesting. So let's see what they got. So advertising some Rollwagen. So some real low flatbeds. And a little diesel narrow gauge. I don't know my narrow gauges at all. So an Austrian 2095 and then an Austrian 1099. And some cute little coaches, Personenwagen. So if you like your narrow gauge, those are cool looking cars. The Utschebeer. And that's it. We are done. All right, that was a lot to digest. If you stuck with me for the nearly 1 hour this video is going to take, I want to thank you. Roco doesn't do anything by halves. That was probably the biggest catalog I've seen in a couple of years. They are really pumping out a lot of stuff. So much to digest. I can't even begin to think. I mean, I'm loving the double decker railjet multiple unit. That's the one that's sticking out, but there were definitely, I'm going to have to go through this again. There were some things that stuck out, including were those Schleswig-Holstein cars, because the coloring was the same. I'll have to go back and look at those. So anyhow, I want to thank you for joining in with me on this odyssey through this massive catalog. Until next time, I'm going to say Auf Wiedersehen, tschüss, and happy trains. Take care, everybody.